Hello AuthorTube, I have a NaNoWriMo update. If you've seen my last update, you'll know I've finished the project, and this is an update of what I've done since. So after I finished the story Sunday, on Monday I started to read and do a first round of critical, not necessarily edits, but areas of where I should, in rewriting and edits, look to improve. And I have to say, on my first read through, I don't actually hate the story. It actually kind of works. There are certain things I need to do. I need more description, more conflict, put my protagonist a bit more through the ringer, probably change the perspective from, or point of view from first person to third person, and maybe retool some of the characters. The characters as they are now, or some of the ally characters as they are now, were originally different. They were basically the same, but rather in the version I wrote, they were a noble family in this city. They were originally going to be small business owners. They owned an inn that Zaziril stayed at the first few weeks of his stay in Rezith, and he became friends with the son and the family, and they ended up getting drawn into his drama. So anyway, but all that said, I'm pretty pleased with the story. I just need to expand on it considerably. Now, I'm going to let it rest a few days and then come back, reread it again, maybe do a few simple edits, and think about it some more. I'm not entirely sure whether I'll stick with this current setting, story type, or switch it to something else. So, as I've mentioned previously, I've been toying with changing this, like keeping the story largely the same, but changing the setting. So the four options for this story are just sticking with this sort of Bronze Age, early Iron Age inspired setting that I currently have, which is more sword and sorcery, although obviously the protagonist is a sorcerer rather than your typical swordsman or the sword wielder. A historical fantasy would be the second option. And in this, it's more reflective of the influences. That I do have certain influences and inspirations for this work that would possibly actually writing a fictionalized account of those would be interesting and worthwhile. Although, as it stands, I don't have the skill or the resources to really do the story justice. So that's probably a no-go. And then there's Diesel Punk, which would basically take the historical and just turn it into its constructed world, where I add a lot more to the source material or inspiration material or research material, whatever you want to call it, which kind of is interesting. Would play with certain aspects of the story that I'm interested in, but again, that might involve considerable more world building than maybe I want to do. So that one I don't know. Although I do want to write a diesel punk eventually. Just not entirely sure what story would work or be appropriate. And then finally, as I've mentioned several times, a contemporary one. And I have wanted to write a contemporary fantasy that does deal with ceremonial magic, which really hasn't been done. I mean, usually the magic has been increasingly more of the Harry Potter type, but yeah, want to do something a little bit different. And again, I can easily change things, so I haven't quite decided. And it also plays into other stories that might fit into these settings better as I kind of work them out. So I haven't quite decided. Right now I'm leaning more towards sticking to the sword and sorcery version, since I've already written it, and I could probably, add some things, plot lines, whatever, to enliven the some of the politics and some of the things that like the inspiration material are kind of, like some of the ideas that are percolating from that. So I'm not entirely sure. I will probably, when I do my next video on Friday, I'll probably decide fully on that. So that was a very short and hopefully not too rambly NaNoWriMo update, and I will talk to you again soon. Thank you, AuthorTube.